All right, Mom, we're going to ask you some questions about your life as a child.
Yay.
And my question was, do you have a memory of, like, say, early elementary school, like, say, third or fourth grade?
Yes, although it's not about school in general, it's about my great grandmother. My great grandmother's name was Grandma Foster, and Grandpa Erickson was her son. And she was a really nice, wonderful woman. And she used to always, when we come over, she always had little chores for us to do. From the time I was very young, she always baked lemon pies. We loved lemon pies, and she would always, ask somebody, "Oh no, can you help me find my sugar? Because I can't find my sugar." And she couldn't find the lemons and stuff. And then she would give us like nickels and stuff to treat us because we helped her find stuff. And she lived just up the little hill right here was the A&W root beer stand, and she lived down just behind that. And so we'd take our nickel and go up to the root beer stand, and we could buy a normal size of A&W root beer right in the mug for a nickel. And so we'd go up there and get ourselves a root beer. And so it was always an assured treat when we went over to Grandma's. But of course, we totally believed that she had lost her lemons and her and her sugar. We didn't know she was giving us charity at the
Hmm,
time.
that's funny.
And I want to also just so that you understand this totally, that while Grandma Foster was always Grandma Foster to us, and I didn't find out until I was an adult, probably in my 30s or 40s, that my great Grandma Foster's name was not Grandma Foster. Of course, she was Grandpa's mother, and that was my grandpa Erickson's mother, and so actually her name was Grandma Erickson. But because we were young and didn't understand having two Grandma Ericksons, we always called her Grandma Foster because that's where she lived, was in a little town of Foster.
That's funny.
That is funny. And I didn't. I mean, I said something to Mom one time. She goes, "Oh well, that was Grandma Erickson." I said, "Grandma Erickson? Oh, it's Grandma Foster." And she said, "No, no, no, no." And then she told me the thing about you kids just didn't understand, and so because she lived in Foster, that's how you always referred to her. You always called her Grandma Foster. But she was a wonderful woman.
Well, what sort of music did you listen to in school when you were in, say, high school?
Oh, in high school? Oh my God. When I was in high school, I seen the Beatles on TV for the first time. I was, I think, all of 13 years old, and of course, just like all the rest of the girls in the entire world, I was as in love with the Beatles as they all were. We all adored the Beatles and thought they were so exotic when they first came out because their hair was hung over their ears. They were round necked, um, like a suit coat, but in a lighter color with a little, accent of dark. We only had black and white TV, so it was black, around the things. And they wore beetle boots, something we had never seen a boy in a kind of a dress boot. The only kind of boots that boys had at that point were work boots or snow boots. So this was just a whole new thing. But
Hmm.
that was the major, and then the whole English music thing coming over here. There were all the different bands from England that came one after another, after another, after another, and they were all wonderful. It was great music.
Hmm. All right. Well, can you tell me about a time that you came to a fork in the road, and can you tell me what kind of decision you made, and
Like that,
why?
I
And
found a
why?
fork in the road.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah,
No, have you ever
I don't think
been
I can
somewhere
tell you
where,
that one because I can't think of anything.
well, every choice you make, every decision you make to do a thing versus the other changes your life from that point forward, typically.
But I mean, I just can't
So,
think of one that was significant enough that I would even remember it.
well, you chose to date my dad instead of, what's his name?
Wait a minute. Yeah, that was because I was always kind of attracted to bad boys, and he seemed like a bad boy to me. So, yeah, He was a bad boy, actually. In fact, he was, where are you going to go when they come for you?
What was the story on that again? Can you refresh my memory? How you were dating a particular guy and dad wanted to date you?
Yes, and they both met up over at the house that I was babysitting at that night because they felt that I had to make a decision on which one I was going to see. And so they both left saying, we're not coming back until you let us know, when this was going to be. And after they left, I was just thinking, well, I mean, if that's how they wanted to be, that's how they wanted to be. I just didn't give it much thought at all until I had heard a little knock on the door, and here it was Rick's dad.
He just decided to come back anyway.
Because the other boy was a very nice, I think, can't think of the right word for it right now, but he was somebody who just kind of stood by his handshake and, just whatever he thought was the right thing to do. And he was like, he made that deal with Ray Nelson, and, but he turned right around, came right back anyway. And so I thought he just seemed like more of the kind of guy I want to be hanging out with.
That's funny. Can you think of a childhood memory that you just think is kind of funny? Something you did with your siblings, maybe?
Yeah, everything was kind of fun with my siblings. It was a nice, fun, big bunch of, I always refer to us as like a litter of puppies because there were just so many of us, and you just had so many playmates. You always had people there, somebody to do something with. If you were mad at one, you'd be getting along better with the other. You were never without friends. Whereas, I had friends and stuff that were only children and who were really, that was a sad thing for them because, like, if it would rain or something and they'd see us all rushing off together because we all had to go to the same place and scrabble and fight and, whatever, they would have to go home and be all alone because it was raining out. And so that was always, and I remember somebody telling me that as we got a little bit older, and it was just surprising because we always looked at those kids like they were only children as like, wow, they really had it made because they got all the attention, they got all the everything.
Right. Can you think of a favorite movie of yours?
As a child,
Either child or as an adult.
yeah, over the years I've probably had quite a few, but the one that always stands out in my mind, and it's not necessarily the best show, not the best shots, and it was so long ago, but was Dr. Zhivago. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful movie, partly because it was like a suckerish kind of love story, but on the other hand, it had the best scenes I've ever seen at that point of my life of like anything to do with the cold and the snow and stuff. They had some beautiful, beautiful scenes in there, which I'm sure if I looked at it now, they would seem really, I mean, with the way that things are now in cinematography, that would not be impressive, I'm sure at all.
Right.
But I always thought that was such a beautiful movie way back then.
How about a favorite song? Favorite music?
Of all time, so hard. I am very diversified on music. I like just about anything. I don't like I like some rap even. I just don't like a lot of I don't like a lot of use of the N word in anything because of the generation that I come from. So that always bothers me. And sometimes when the swearing gets to be too intense, so that every other word is a swear word, and after a while you can't make sense of what they're even trying to say. I don't really care for that.
How about something like from more your generation in the 60s?
Well, that was always, of course, the Beatles would have come first. But I liked a lot of other people. Like I really liked.
Like from, how about like Woodstock was probably your time frame. Was there
Well, I like
artists
Janis
or
Joplin. I like Bob Dylan. And there's just a lot of others. I still remember Neil Diamond from even before that, and Roy Orbison. They were beautiful singers. At that time in my life, my mother listened always to country music, and it was, of course, always called country western music at that time. And mostly because I was angry with my mom a lot, I just detested whatever I thought was country western music, and so that was the only thing. But now, I mean, I like country music, and I like country rock. I've always liked, never recognized, I guess, that it was country. Um, but I mean, there's just a lot of different music that I like. I would like to listen to an opera, and then again, like I said, I like some. Well, I like the blues. I like just about everything. If I start, I can't stop.
How about parenting? Do you have any funny memories of anything to do with
Oh, I have funny
the
memories of
kids?
all the kids. Just crazy little things that would take forever and ever and ever to tell. And someday I'm gonna write down. I'm gonna write down things for each set of children, and they can share them. Funny things about their father or their mother. Um, and seeing you're the one that is doing this right now. I mean, one of the things, and I'm not sure how funny this would even be to you yet at this time, but you used to be so kind of terrified of blood that was just would freak you out just completely. Where even if you thought it was blood, it was the size of the head of a pin. I mean, you would just scream. You'd be just terrified. And I remember doing that a couple times, which was really mean of me. But I was young and stupid, and I'd say, "Oh, Rick, look, are you bleeding?" And before you'd even be looking, you'd be screaming and like there was a little monster on your arm or something, because you were so terrified of that. But I remember a lot of things, and some things were scary, like when you and Rhonda shared that bottle of children's aspirin. It wasn't called children's aspirin, but it was something pretty damn close. And um, we had been up by Auntie Ruth Ann's in Osseo, Wisconsin, and one or both of you had not felt good, whatever it was up there, and so I had these, and you'd each probably gotten one of them. And I guess they didn't used to have child care caps on the things, because it was just in either my purse or the suitcase. I was laying on my bed, and Remy was laying there with me, and we were talking about something. And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's too quiet. Let's go find your sister and brother." And you guys were sitting behind the rocking chair in the living room, and you had whatever it was, the purse or the little suitcase or something, and you had an almost empty bottle of this congesperin, I think it was called. Um, and when I'm asking where it is, well, you guys had eaten it, and you were kind of scared, because I think you thought it was candy, and you were just scared because I was getting so frustrated and excited and stuff about it, and so you figured you were in trouble. And I mean, we ended up. Oh my God, we ended up. I must have called. I think it was Gail. I don't think it was my dad that time. I think it was Gail that was home, and that I called, and we rushed you guys to the hospital, to the emergency room, and took you in. And they decided what they would do is make you. You'd have to throw it up, otherwise they'd have to pump your stomachs, and they were going to try first to see if they get you to throw it up. So they'd have to put the tubes down your throat and stuff. And you actually threw up,
Yeah, I remember.
but Rhonda was so freaking stubborn,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
she would just fight it and fight it. And she was real little, probably not too much more than about a year and a half old. And you were about 3.5, and she just fought it. They said, we're going to have to pump her stomach, because you could just see her body just fighting with her little fists and everything. But just as they went to do that, she ended up throwing up. So but it was just probably one of the scariest things because, I mean, I'd heard so many horrible things about kids, overdosing like that and stuff.
Yeah.
And, and then you realize, and I imagine that's why they ended up putting childproof caps
It's
on
probably because of me.
medicines. Pretty much. Pretty much.
I actually remember all of it. I remember actually taking the aspirin out and thinking it was candy, and then splitting it up with Rhonda. And I remember you trying to stick, it's just being frantic and trying to stick your finger down my
I
throat in the
probably did,
toilet,
yeah.
and then having to call and go there, and then throwing up in the little bucket they put on me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great memory. Good stuff. That's the funny one of the funniest stories I
Oh,
remember.
that's not funny, but it was
That's
funny
funny.
that what you, well, I mean, it wasn't funny at the time at all, but when you look back on
No, it's
it,
kind of funny now, but
and I just remember how you guys looked when we found you behind the chairs and stuff, and with that look of shock on your little face. It's like, oh,
yeah,
oh.
right.
And then you wonder
We're
what the
found
oh,
out.
oh is, and you start checking for the oh, oh, and it's like, oh my God, where is this? Where is it? Like I was too dumb to know where is it. With that look of shock on their face, you knew that it had to be someplace it wasn't supposed to be.
Right. Well, let's see. What else do I want to ask you? Something about what's your favorite way to spend time? What do you enjoy doing most?
Rocking babies.
Yeah.
I love to rock babies and smell their little necks and kiss their little necks and stuff. Yeah. It's just the best smell and the best feel in the whole entire world.
What if there's no babies around?
Mm.
You go to Alabama.
We got a lot of babies now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you enjoy spending your days now?
No? Well, I mean, things have slowed down for me a lot, and I do have the dog and the cat, and I'm happy to have them there because really, between my dog and cat and Alexa, that's who I talk to most of the week. um, but because I don't get around as well, I mean, I'm on my phone a lot. I love watching YouTube, almost anything on YouTube, just like when I was a lot younger in my early 20s and stuff. I used to like reading the encyclopedias, and that's kind of how I feel about YouTube, because anything that pops into your head, you can go and look up and find out how it was made, where it came from, who created the first thing on that, how it went across, how the laws affected it. I mean, you just find out things that a lot of it you never knew you were even interested in, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I gotta look further into that because, whoa, I didn't know that. It's just like little miracles happening all the time. I love that.
How has society changed from the time you were very little to now? The biggest changes you can think of. The telephone comes to mind.
Yeah, well, it's technology altogether that, I mean, I think that my generation has, been through more in technology than in any kind of technology than any other generation has. I mean, we've gone from barely having a small black and white TV set when I was about 5, to having our little phones and TV sets and everything's computers that we didn't even know existed at the point and stuff. And I mean, it's mind-boggling. You're never going to be able to experience what I've experienced, and I of course won't be around to experience everything that you experience. But it's like you guys may end up visiting, going to Mars or something. I won't be here for that, but it's that drastic of a thing that we went through with technology. The first time that I was even aware of computers, I do believe was probably in the late 80s, early 90s. And then you find out that, they have been working on these things and stuff for, like since the 1940s, but it would be something, one computer would take up a whole room. because it'd be all the screens and all these different parts of pieces of the computer basically that were out there. And now to think that we have everything that we can just carry around in our hand and have all that knowledge is just absolutely amazing. The telephone thing, I remember laughing. George Jetson was the cartoon. The Jetsons was one of the big things that probably when you guys were little is when that kind of thing started, and I started watching it because I'd watch cartoons with you guys, and we're sitting there laughing about George Jetson's boss. He's on a TV screen in his house, and they're talking back and forth just like they can see each other and everything. Isn't that funny? Because we just didn't have any idea that that was even a possibility. It was just like something that nobody would ever think of doing. Never thought that it would exist, and now to find out that that's a lot of what they do is just very old fashioned. It's like it's way surpassed, like the book 1984 and stuff. And at one time, it was still, it was before 1984, it was in the 60s. And of course, that I was aware of 1984 because I think it was a school project, a high school project. And, we just thought a lot of it was nonsense. And now it's like, 1984, of course, is come and gone, and we've so far past that. We've so far come through and past that I don't know. I just can't even explain it. It's like, like right now, that's one of the old, it's not a scary science fiction kind of thing anymore because we've actually lived through it and had it and realized that, some things now are so much smoother than they had it then. But, to think that George Orwell even came up with thinking about that all them years ago is is crazy.
It is. I can remember reading that and thinking that, videotape. They were talking about cameras being everywhere, just
Yeah, on the
everywhere.
street corners and
On the
stuff.
street
Come
corners, come on,
on.
in your house.
Big
There's going
Brother
to be
knew
cameras everywhere.
everything.
And
That's
now,
impossibility.
I mean, they have listening devices. They've got cameras on every corner. They've literally no more
They've got little
data
Alexas
than,
that live with us, and we don't know what they're telling other
yeah,
people.
right. It's crazy.
It is really crazy. I remember the first phone, the first, I guess it was cell phone that we ever had. It was a bag phone that we carried around in the critogram van, so I could take the extra calls and stuff when I would get them go out putting signs up. And I mean, we thought it was like a miracle. It was about the size of, we used to have catalogs too, and it would be about the size of a catalog, but the size of an actual magazine, but about this thick, with the regular, what was then our table phone, the regular size of that, hooked to this bag phone, but we could plug it into the cigarette lighter in the van and it would work. And we thought that was a mighty miracle. And of course you couldn't, there was no such thing as at that point of any picture or anything being sent over the cell phone. That was just being able to have your phone with you, answering it in the car and things like that, where we would have never thought of ever having any kind of service. Still, I remember being almost afraid, laughing, when they talked about having cameras that you'd be able to see yourself and somebody else when you call them, you'd be able to see them. And not figuring how that must work, I was just like horrified, thinking, oh my God, like what if I had, just washed my hair and somebody called somebody I didn't want to be seeing me like that or whatever, you never thought about any kind of control over it or anything, or that could it really even be a possibility? You just don't even believe that. And now, I mean, think about how common all those things are. And my God, we do our shopping over the phone.
Right.
We do all our bill paying over the phone. I don't even go out and get my mail that's in the mailbox once or twice a month, unless Rhonda comes over. She picks it up for me because she thinks that's ridiculous. But I pay everything online and stuff. The only thing I don't pay online is my water bill, and They do. They turn that off on me every once in a while. Not because I can't pay it, but I hate to fill out the paperwork. I have to do that. They won't let me do it over the phone. I like to not have to fill out forms. So
Right.
I paid the price several times over, and but usually if I pay them every 2-3 months, they're good with that. They don't shut me off before that. It's just when I
Right.
forget longer than that. But that's about the
So,
only thing that I mean of any. That's like the only thing I ever get in the mail. It's important
right.
because everything else is is done through the computer and stuff. That there's nothing that I have to do with the phone and I mean with the mailbox. And it just seems like kind of a waste to run out there and pick up. I usually go on a garbage day when I do go out there because I end up taking the stuff out and sorting it, and most all goes in the garbage. Unless there's some little article I want to read on something.
Yeah, thank goodness for email and paying stuff on the
We
computer.
used to get, don't you kids remember catalogs at the
Mm-hmm.
house? We used to
Yeah.
get a Sears catalog and a Penny's catalog and I can't even think of what other, Montgomery Ward catalog, and then we get Christmas catalogs that were at least this thick, but the other catalogs were like this because it'd have all your choices of all the clothes that you're buying all year long and stuff would be in there, and all kinds of other things. You know, well, sometimes furniture, but sheets and couch cover-ups and all those kind of things. And now I heard a comedian talking the other day about somebody threatening her with some photos, and they were going to put her name online and I don't know what they were going to do. They were going to share all her information online and stuff. And I can't tell it funny like she did, but it was so funny to me when I heard her saying it because she was saying, but she said, I don't know. She said, I almost said, or I said, you know what? We used to have somebody that used to always do that to us. And they would take this big book and they would throw it up on our porches at least like once a year, and it had everything in there. It had our name, our address, our phone number, it had all our information that we needed. Anybody could get a hold of us. They weren't worried about us getting a hold of their phone number or somebody calling that shouldn't, because it was common information for everybody to have out there. And then you think I'm going to be afraid of you posting that same stuff on the internet? and
Right.
and think about it, we really do. No, nobody wants that personal information put out there. You don't want I don't want everybody to have my phone number.
That's funny.
And how long ago was it that we were still getting telephone books?
Right. It wasn't long ago at all.
No, the only thing that we forgot to put in there was our social security number. But somebody must just now have thought about that. It's kind of an easy thing to do.
Is there something that you wanted to do? Did you want to have a certain career or something you wanted to be when you were older, when you
You
were
know
young?
what?
Do you
The only thing
remember?
I ever really wanted to be was a mother. That was the only thing that I ever focused on was being somebody's mom someday. Because I had always, I was the oldest living at home. I had all these little brothers and sisters and stuff that I helped take care of and stuff, and I really loved them and really enjoyed them. And that was just the thing. I know I told you earlier tonight. I'd always thought I would have like 18 kids because I want some that I were mine, birth children, some that were adopted children, and some that were foster children. And your dad and I figured out today why I thought all these things. But um, that was just like probably the only plan that I had made. Later in life, when I was probably in my 30s, I really wanted desperately to be a midwife because there were just a lot of different changes that I was going through at that time, and I really know that I enjoyed the kids so much, and I knew that I guess I was always a little bit towards the medical field a little bit too, and I just thought that would just be a perfect thing for me because I love the idea of birth. I love and it still really appeals to me. It sounds like a really fun thing to do to be there at those births and assist in those births and and all that. But the place that I was married at the time to Dan, and he wasn't very open in a lot of his thoughts. And I would have had to have gone to the farm that Stephen Gatskin had ran down in Tennessee, and that is still there. It's called the farm because they had a school for midwifery, and his wife ran that, and that would have been the place that I would have wanted to have been licensed from at that time, because I think that they were the best, and it was the best technology out there at the time for that. And I would have still, and then I don't know if that was before I had the goats or after, but I was going to say one or the other. Those are the only kids I ended up helping deliver were the little goat kids.
Right.
But I would have liked to have done human kids.
It was fun to listen to. I guess I want to know, like, how do you want to be remembered by the grandkids?
Well, I would just assume that they remembered me as goofy and fun, and that I was that I was kind and that I loved them. That they were positive of, well, she might have been a little bit goofy, because I know that I am, and I kind of revel in that sometimes. So, I don't mind them saying that, but to say, but she was fun and she was fair, and just I would just want them to remember me kindly.
Well, I think they will, Mom.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
All right. That's it for now.
Yeah.
We'll do another interview soon.
Well, that'll be fun. I'll think about it before then.
All right, Mom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Love you. Good night.